Do It Again from 2020 is the song where Brian Wilson is trying to recapture some of the old energy and enthusiasm from the old days. So it has to do with the whole song and all the groups contributing, and the vocals are just like old days. But I also think that in a way they're sort of taking the model that they had created in terms of the craft of writing a song and recreating it. They're modeling themselves. He had learned to model lots of other people throughout his career, so now they're sort of modeling themselves. And you can even make it as simple as a basic chord progression that you hear in Do It Again. And so forth. So it's this chord, which moves to this chord. Just a 3-chord progression. Well, that's a very simple progression that you hear in all kinds of songs. But I think it's meaningful that it's exactly the same as the progression in their first hit, Surfin' Safari. Same 3 chords. So I think that's just one example of going back to your roots and saying, you know, let's do it just like we used to do. Let's be as simple as we can and direct and write a great song in the tradition of great Beach Boys songs. Sometimes when he takes a cover, he just reproduces the basic original version. And this is also something he'd been doing for a while. But in other cases, he'll take the original song and manipulate it in interesting ways so that he really creates something different. You hear this especially in some of the earlier covers, like Hushabye, for example, from one of the early Beach Boys albums, where he takes the section from the original song by the Mystics, which had a quotation of Brahms' Lullaby. But when Brian uses that same song, he moves it to the beginning and then eventually combines it with this other melody that had originally not at all been combined. And so it really creates a really unique and special version. It really puts Brian Wilson's imprint on that song. So if you look through the covers on 15 Big Ones from that standpoint, there are lots of just basic recreations, nothing that unusual. But in a few cases, I think he was trying to play around with the material a little bit. For example, Blueberry Hill. At the beginning of that song, you're not really sure what the song is. You're not really sure what's happening. You just hear this. A saxophone duet. You think, well, you know, why are we listening to this saxophone duet? And then eventually the song starts. Okay, then you recognize it. It's an interesting arrangement. It's very spare, very different from the original. And then when you get to the verse part of the song, if you listen carefully to the background, you'll hear the saxophone duet that you heard back in the beginning. Suddenly it all comes together. It's just like the song Wendy, again, one from an earlier Beach Boys album, one of their greatest songs. At the beginning of Wendy, you hear this in the bass. A very curious beginning for a basically upbeat song about a girl, Wendy. And then finally the song starts. And when you get to the next phrase, this one, the bass line is that introduction. That bass suddenly comes back. So the arrangement of Blueberry Hill is a lot like that. It takes this little idea, it's a mystery when you first hear it, and then eventually it all makes sense.